colleagues back at home about what you are doing here.
Okay, thank you. In this area, what do you think the benefits of the e-learning for both faculty members and students?
Okay, I think I'll focus more on blended learning. Is that probably what?
In general, like
okay.
e-learning.
Yeah. Well, okay, there are a number of different benefits. And one thing you have to be careful of is always comparing e-learning or blended learning to traditional classroom. Is there any reason why we think the traditional classroom is the best way of teaching? I think that's a question I'm not expecting you to answer, but we have to think about that. We always say we want to compare e-learning to the classroom, as though the classroom is the epitome, the top standard, the gold standard for instruction. Well, I would argue perhaps the standard lecture is not the most effective way of learning, because we see quite clearly now that students learn best when they're active, when they're actively involved in the learning process, when they're constructing materials, when they're reflecting and thinking about those resources and readings that they have, and then that they're responding or commenting on those materials. So typically the learning in the standard lecture is very passive. So e-learning allows the opportunity for interactive, active learning, where students can interact easily with the instructors, they can read materials, post reflections on those materials, they can interact with their fellow students. And that's one thing that you don't really get in the standard classroom, because in the standard classroom there's just really not the opportunity to interact with the instructor as much as we would like it to happen, just because it's not practical, not feasible in say a 50-minute class. You have 30 students, that would give each student maybe a minute, and that would take half of the whole lecture, over half. So active learning, I think students can learn better as a result of blended learning or e-learning more generally. And also studies have shown that certainly in a blended learning situation, that students are generally more satisfied with the blended learning approach, because it gives them more options, more choices, more flexibility in their schedule to allow them to do other things. In many cases, we now have students who are working, some cases almost full-time jobs, even though they're enrolled as a full-time student. So blended learning offers this idea of some campus face-to-face work and some online work, and it allows students then to have more flexibility in their schedules for working, for studying, and for other responsibilities that they might have. So there's that flexibility and choice, because the younger generation now is really valuing the idea of choice and customizing and options. You just need to look at the way they will customize their cell phones and their web pages at Facebook and so on. They like that ability to customize and adapt, and you can do that much more easily, of course, in a blended learning situation. So perhaps now a third area is the area of achievement. A number of studies have been done actually, and comparing achievement with the standard classroom. And those studies generally now are showing that students are performing slightly better in blended learning situations and also in fully online situations than the standard classroom. So there are some benefits in terms of achievement as well. Now, those benefits are often not large benefits, but nevertheless they are sort of improvements. And what we can say for sure, and I think the research literature supports this, is that students in online and blended situations are doing as well as face-to-face, if not better. So I think that can help satisfy some of the concerns that some educators have about the quality of experience that students have in the e-learning situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Last thing we want to ask you about, every new program or
yes.
Project faced some difficulties in the beginning.
Yeah.
What can you say to the faculty members and students in King Khalid University to overcome these difficulties?
Okay, I could express that in two words. Be patient. Yes, we should not think of online learning or e-learning more generally. We should not think of that as all or nothing. We have to start thinking of gradually introducing e-learning into courses and not thinking that we have to radically transform a course overnight from a standard face-to-face course to a fully e-learning course. So faculty have to be patient, approach it very systematically and incrementally. So 1 year, a faculty member might simply try an online discussion group, say for 2 weeks, and that's it. Everything else might be carried on in the normal way of instruction. So then after he gets confidence in that, then he might want to look at, now that discussion group, it was successful in certain areas. Other areas it wasn't quite so good. Now, how can I improve that? And you can turn to your center, of course, for help on that. And then the next year in that same course, he might have discussion groups carrying on throughout the whole course. So it's a process of gradually introducing e-learning into a course. And so we should not expect it to happen overnight, a complete transformation overnight. We have to be patient and take our time. And if something doesn't work, well, reflect back, look back and see why it didn't work. And then look at ways you can improve it next time. For instance, a person might set up a WebCT site for their course, and he might find that students are not really going in and reading the pages. And so he might say, well, it wasn't a success, and I don't think I should try it again. But if you probe a bit further, you might find the reason why that wasn't happening was because students didn't have access to the technology to allow them to go in and look at the pages. So the instructor might be blaming the electronic format, but the real problem was that students simply did not have computers to access the courses, or they didn't have high-speed internet when they were off campus, and there was video and it didn't play properly over low-speed internet. So we have to always make sure that we're sort of assessing what we're doing and using that for improvement down the road.
Nice.
Yeah, so these are some ideas I think that, that we can take away for what's happening here.
Thank you, Dr. Ron, for this informative discussion. We really enjoyed having you in King Khalid University, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you, and I've enjoyed my visit here. I've enjoyed your city and your region of Saudi Arabia, my first time to this region, and I'm very impressed, very impressed. It's a lovely area, and I look forward to possibly coming back in the future. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good.